Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Give me just a moment to make sure I got everything all set up. Not sure if I got any of you out there today, but we're going to give it our best. Just as a note, I'm doing this live for a couple of reasons, and one of those reasons is I spent the day getting basically beat up at some hand-to-hand qualifications I have to do for my job. So that was a lot of fun. Oh. And also, we've got a dog here, and she's going to possibly be interrupting us. But anyway, starting us off. Hello, Sugar Time. I don't believe I've seen you here before. How are you? Anyway, today we are reviewing and discussing Breach of Peace, and I thought this was fairly apt to do today, considering the amount of time I spent getting beat up for those hand-to-hand qualifications. Glad to hear it, Sugar. So we're going to start off a little bit as we normally do with the recap of the story, and I'm trying to keep these short, and I really have to keep it short for this one because it's a very, very short book. So we start with one of our main characters, and I'm going to butcher this name even though I've heard it at least half a dozen times in the last hour. Clid, who is a female inspector, kind of like a detective, who's going to investigate a gruesome murder. Howdy, Vanya. How you doing? This gruesome murder, it seems, was conducted at the home of a family of royals. But it wasn't just the family of royals who was murdered. It was all of their servants, or at least a good chunk of their servants. Howdy, John. No, she is not FBI. This is actually, she's a fantasy inspector. Or, well, fantasy, yes, kind of. There's a bit more to explain about it, but we'll get into that in a moment. So when she arrives at the scene, it has been very apparent that it's very apparent that the servants were killed rather quickly, but that the family members were done much more slowly and methodically. Then her husband and another inspector show up, and they all are also inspectors. So it turns out in this world, there was an authority that showed up called the Almighty, which set the system of laws into place. And inspectors are kind of like local heroes, considered paragons of the community. Oh, someone's got questions as well. Okay. What's your question, Vanya? I'll get to it when as I'm doing the recap here. So the two other inspectors actually have much easier names. They're Samuel, who is Khalid's husband, and Chapman, who's kind of the autist. You're not entirely certain he's an autist until much, much later in the story. Well, when her husband and this autist start working together, they start to deduce that maybe some of the more gruesome things were caused by some very odd details, which I'm not going to cover because they're rather gruesome and not very YouTube friendly. But they decide that they're going to go check out the wine cellar because nobody's been able to get in there. After trying to pick the lock, which they are unfortunately unable to do, and you'll have to forgive the noise, that's the dog. They're unfortunately able to get into the cellar. They have to get a crowbar to bust in. And it's while tracking through the series, it's while tracking through this. Dogger, you're going to have to go away. It's while tracking through the cellar that they that Khalid runs across a zombie-like creature, which she proceeds to continue to shoot, and it continues to bleed all over her. And I'd like to go into a much more detailed explanation, but this is a very short book, and unfortunately, anything more I cover is going to spoil some things. Yes, Sugar Time. There actually is something like that later, but we'll get into that in just a moment. So let's cover some of the things that I didn't like. And that would be the beginning felt kind of slow. It was it probably wasn't as slow as it felt for me. But I have a habit of getting these audiobooks and going for a long walk to listen to it. So it did take quite a while to get through the family murder scene at the Royals mansion. And it did also have a problem that the characters felt a little bit murky to me at the beginning. And probably one of the bigger problems I had with that was Chapman, because you don't really get a feel for how autistic he is till much, much later. Now, I do want to cover this monster that Sugar Time mentioned. So there are beings in this world who I believe are referred to as the anointed. They are people chosen by God or by their Almighty, and they are blessed with inhuman speed, inhuman durability, and extreme strength. I did not know that Whoopi Goldberg had her own book, John. I was not aware at all. So another thing that I didn't really care for, there is a part in the book where Khalid is chastising her husband, and I don't believe that particular segment was very, very clear. There was a transgression between Samuel and Chapman, who seemed to have some kind of rivalry with each other, but I wasn't entirely sure how that entirely played out. It seemed like one minute they were discussing while one was eating an apple, and the next moment one had pulled a gun on the other. And I was a little bit lost in what exactly had happened. Oh, it was a joke. I wouldn't doubt if Whoopi Goldberg had wrote a book. She seems very opinionated to me. I guess that's what happens when you're on a show called The View. And now I've bashed The View. There's going to be a bunch of people coming after me. So let's get into some of the things that I liked. And it's also one of the things I didn't like was Chapman's kind of autistic nature of solving problems. So Chapman, as mentioned before, is kind of a weird, almost emotionless person. He tends to harass the other officers. Well, not even really harass. He's just kind of dismissive of them, won't remember their names. And even when he asks them their names, he promptly forgets what they told him. And he's just like, oh, wow, that's how you found out people's names. Yeah, you could make a lot of money as a ghostwriter. I'm not sure I'd want to do it because you'd end up having to make some books for some people you probably didn't like. And with the advent of Twitter, a lot of people you might have liked have quickly become people you're probably not going to like because everybody has an opinion. But I think Chapman was probably one of my favorite characters in this just because he seems to be really close to what a lot of people act like nowadays. He's very antisocial. But luckily, the book is pretty fast-paced. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the dog who wants to play. You guys can say hi to Birdie if you want. She's one of the three we got here, and she's being a little bit nuts. But anyway, so the story is fairly fast-paced. You're not going to have too much time to get lost in anything, even when things do get a little bit murky, or when there's a few times when the prose repeat themselves. I do not have a camera yet. I promise I will get a camera when I reach my weight loss goals. I am about 70% of the way there. I just need to get these last 40 pounds out of the way. And then I'm going to have a camera and you guys can see all the doggos. There's 3 of them, but only Birdie is the one who will probably make an appearance because I sleep upstairs and my other 2 dogs are a bit too old to really make it up there anymore. Well, that's not true. Tiber, he's a bit too old to make it up the steps anymore. Oh, thank you. Ruby, if she comes upstairs, she'll just go to my bed and fall asleep on my bed. And then I'll have dirt all over my bed because she thinks she's dainty and she's not. But along with the fast pace, this book's actually rather punchy. It goes through, it's for the most part fairly clear. There are a few sections which will probably trip up some people. You go back and read them and get some clarity. But the more research I'm doing, the more I'm learning that these are some things we need to seek out and try to make these as clear as possible. But for a first pass at a book, this was actually really good. I have read some professionally edited books that had similar problems, and the ones in this aren't so severe. And it could just be that I was a little bit distracted at the time. We all get distracted even when reading. So, that being said, all the characters actually have a pretty good dynamic with each other. I actually felt like Khalid and her husband genuinely loved each other, which they do make a big deal about their romance. They're an older couple, so it feels like a more established relationship, which I like to see more of in books than the beginnings of a relationship or people, coming together and falling in love. It's nice to see an actual relationship in a book. People who have been together for a very long time and genuinely enjoy each other's company. I was a little bit upset when Khalid basically emasculated her husband, but I could kind of let it slide because I wasn't entirely sure what was going on at that point of the book. And I do want to say I really, really loved the ending. Like, the ending of this book was great. I don't really care much for the constant saccharine endings or what people think are going to be a happy ending. I like sad endings. I like endings where things are a little bit dystopian, and I didn't find out this was a dystopian book till about the halfway mark. This is actually a very dystopian book. It felt very prescient, I guess is the proper term. And probably one of the better things about this book is that it's relatively short. It's a very quick read. I had a I like to listen to audiobooks while I do my runs and I do my walks because I usually spend a good chunk of my week doing that. And listening to these actually helps keep me motivated. It helps to distract me from having to run a couple miles and sweating myself to death at 90-degree temperatures. So for a series now, I just recently found out, and I think it was Sugar Time who told me, but I'm not 100% sure it's the same person I'm talking to. I never like to jump to conclusions. That this has actually got a sequel, which if I had known, I would have gone through that as well, and I would have made this double feature, which would have been a lot more fun. I feel I would have got a better story for Mr. Green's writing, or a better feel for Mr. Green's writing, which I have to say, for this being an author two book, it does much better than most of the ones that I've seen. Socks are like that, huh? Yeah, I'll have to say, socks really don't work too well with the run. Being a bigger person, and not just losing the weight, but just being a bigger person in general. Once you're over 6 feet, you start running, you really wear through that stuff. Okay, I thought you might have been. I thought you might have been somebody else. Sorry about that, Sugar Time. Yes, there's actually a sequel, and he just released a novel that's set in a different world. No, I'm really terrible with names. I did door to door sales years ago, and it completely destroyed my ability to remember names. Once you've seen 300 people within a month, you kind of. I'm glad she got it. I'm terrible with names. Now, another thing I want to mention on the thoughts with this book is that there are a few spots in this book where the prose are a little bit repetitive, but it's not so much that I think most people would catch it. I'm glad I at least know my name, though I have almost got it wrong a time or two. It is a little worrying when you can't remember your own name. Now, and the very last thing I'd like to mention in my thoughts, and I think it's a good point in its favor, it's actually a complete story. I think this could have been a standalone book. Though it does have a sequel, I think this probably would have been a good standalone. Yeah, working in fast food will destroy your ability to remember people's faces. Lucky me, I was only ever been fired from one job, and it was McDonald's. I got fired because I caught a migraine and had to go home. And the person I was working with wasn't happy and decided to get me fired. And luckily, I've never had to work him again. Ah, well, I'm a little tired, John. So if I don't always catch all your jokes, I do apologize. I spent most of my day getting beat up because we had to do some certifications, and whenever I go to these certifications, since I'm the biggest guy in the room, I'm the one that gets targeted. I'm trying to keep up, and I do like to discuss. And I'm just kind of having a lazy live stream here. So I just took my notes on this book. I would have liked to do some more, but it's honestly, it's just a tight little contained story. There's not much more to say about it. I actually did enjoy it. I would recommend it as a read. It doesn't take very long. It's maybe an afternoon's worth. It's a good way to kill about 3 hours. I probably will pick up the sequel, though I'll probably make that a small feature on a Friday. Though right now I'm currently working on a feature I want to release on a Friday on some of the writer's workshop books I've been working with. I've been working on a video on the book First You Write a Sentence, which I think would be fun to have a little thing to go over the different chapters and what he talks about. It is part of a bigger series, Rainer. I don't think the world building in this first book was terribly big. It actually felt really well paced out. Let's see, Sugar Time. I thought it had some serious issues, especially with the plot having no setup in the second half, but the author had a lot of potential. I kind of liked the world building. I felt it had a very light touch to it, though there, aside from the kind of getting sprung up by the Anointed. I know they mentioned the Anointed before, but the Anointed just kind of comes up out of nowhere. I didn't realize that it was going to be just like a big monster. Oh, you can make fun of me all you want, John. It's not going to hurt my feelings. I'm certainly not Lizzo size. I actually shrunk down into a smaller size wardrobe, having a little bit of trouble getting those last 40 pounds off, but I'd probably have less trouble if I wasn't walking to restaurants and having a meal. So, but today I feel like I earned it since I got thrown to the ground a lot. So it was nice too. It's a restaurant that I worked at when I was in high school, and they closed and opened back up. They're actually pretty good, but I never got to eat there as a customer, and now I've got money, so I'm going to eat there. But the dogs do help for exercise. My two older ones, they I have to walk them separately than the younger one because the younger one's got that thing where you can take her for a 2 hour walk, bring her back, and she'll just still be ready to go for another 2 hour walk. Mostly with the little one, I have to go outside and throw a toy around for her. She's a crazy little dog, but I love her. But yeah, that's I would like to I'm not sure about picking up the second book because I've got my next book already set. I actually have my next few planned out. Once we get done with all my certifications, I should have a bit more time to read. But I'm also going to be starting some extra classes soon just to, shore up some weaknesses I have in my career. So, chaotic schedule, like always. But this is a hobby. I like to review other people's work. Helps me with my own work. And actually, this week I wanted to do a different book this week, but I'm editing my own works right now, and they're getting ready to go to the editor because I've had a book done for over a year, and it's been a little while since I had the first book released. I won't tell you my exact age, John, but I'm uncomfortably close to 40. I had I was in a unique position where I basically had to raise my brother when he was a child. So in my 20s, I wasn't really interested in starting a family. Yeah, there's no better way to prevent a kid from getting a girl pregnant in high school than having a screaming child there. I'm sorry, Vanya. I'm not sure what the SSC means, and I probably should. But nah, I'm just trying to get some stuff done. I'm hoping to have a book published in December, or another book published in December, and maybe another one in May if I can swing it. My social security code. Yeah, I'm not giving you my social security code. I'm older. Well, we can leave it at that. I'm the oldest of my siblings, and my sister is working on her third kid. So I just kind of sit back and enjoy having money in my hobbies. Yes, it's the second Battle Games book should be published in December. I actually had the first draft done for about a year now. I found another beta reader to finish up the story, and I've got a schedule. I got it scheduled to be edited. Oh, there's no hurry there, John. I'm going to. I might do another giveaway with it right before the second book comes out. I'm trying to get better at promotions, but I'm a very patient person. This is all a hobby for me. In case it's a hobby that might one day pay money, and right now it's a really good way to write off things in my taxes. So, because every dime I spend on promoting and publishing and editing, I can write off in my taxes. In fact, anything I buy for the YouTube channel can also be written off in my taxes. So this is helping me give the government less money. So, hey, thanks, guys. You guys are here and you're helping me make sure the government gets a little bit less money from me. So I really thank you guys for that. It makes it a lot more fun to do this stuff. Tax write offs are good. Anything that will allow you to give less money to the government is a good thing. Yeah, I think I probably should have approached battle games a little bit differently, just due to the large number of characters in the book. I probably should not have started my writing career with a book that had seven what could be called main characters. It was certainly a challenge, but I was really hoping to. When I first started, I thought about doing it like George R. R. Martin does the Song of Fire and Ice, where each character is in a different point of view. And I seriously considered it, but then I decided to go for a different scheme, but that didn't work out. Hey, Barry, how's it going? So, Battle Games ended up getting written in the omniscient third person, which is much more difficult when you've got seven main characters. You should always save any art designs or anything like that. You can write all that off in your taxes. If you're an author and you have a book published, you can write that off in your taxes. Well, I'm glad you got them done really well. There's most of the games were much better done, except for I think Crossroads. Crossroads, I will probably never choreograph another game of Crossroads ever again. Yes, large casts are really difficult. I think after getting some experience and going through some of these books I want to make workshop videos on, I'm going to make much. I'm going to start making much shorter books, trying to make them a bit punchier. I don't know if you can write yourself out of your taxes, Vanya. You can write a lot of things off in your taxes. If you have to buy a new computer for writing, you can write that off. If you get Scrivener, you can write that off. Any programs you have to buy, your advertising, and any editing work you have to have done, even your formatting and cover art, you can have all that written off in your taxes. You can write off almost everything, I think. Um, well, my mom's actually a CPA, so she taught me about taxes when I was younger. So I kind of have that wonderful thing to access. But she basically says you can write off anything, and what you can't write off this year, if you do it right, you can write it off next year. No, you don't have to register as a corporation. You can just write it off in your own personal taxes. Is like if it weren't for the fact that it would reveal like all my identity, I would definitely let you guys see a copy of my tax return. It actually doesn't take quite that long. I think my taxes took what, like 4 hours. And last year I spent about $2,500 of stuff. Actually, I'm thinking of doing more giveaways because they seem to work pretty good about getting. Do you think I'm older, John? I'm not 40, but I'm close to 40. I'm not quite at 40 yet. I am. Yeah, I have a secret identity. Alex isn't even really my real name. I don't know. Even if you found people I went to high school with, I'm not sure half of them would remember me. I just really liked I liked certain things like keeping to myself. So yes, it's Martha. Darn it, you found me out, Barry. I can't believe it. My actual name is Martha. I can't say my identity is Axel, but my character Axel is certainly based out of the region I was born in. Talix, yes. I'm going to pull a Styx Hexenhammer and change my first name to Talix. I do like the fact that he named himself Tarl. That was pretty cool. Actually, right now I don't have a beard. That picture is my avatar is based off of me, but where I had to switch jobs, I had to shave my beard. So unfortunately, it's gone now. Todd. Actually, I have an uncle named Todd. Almost all the males in my family have first names that begin with T, except for my cousin. He's the only one. Oh no, wait, and my brother. Like Master Yoshi. Yeah, kind of. I had a really big beard when I had that done. Like my beard does not grow down; it grows out. So I get the big commie beard. I do like George Carlin. I have his book Napalm and Silly Putty here on my bookshelf. I rather liked George Carlin, but I think he was kind of I don't want to call him a bad business person, but I think he was kind of I know he cheated a couple people out of some money because he ran a record company for like low level parody people and comedy people, and he didn't pay a few of them. I had a girlfriend in high school that might have tried that. Yeah, I dated a pretty strong girl in high school. Most of my girlfriends after that have been considerably smaller. I uh, I tend to date petite women for some strange reason. You know, when you're 6'3" and you're over 200 pounds, for some reason, smaller women like you. But George Carlin, I always thought he was funny, but I couldn't watch his comedy specials more than once. Though it was pretty sad when he died. So next week, I'm actually going to review an author who I've kind of had on the back burner. I don't like to reveal people I'm reviewing before I review them because I like it to be a bit of a surprise. I like people to just wake up one Wednesday and go, "Oh my gosh, my book got reviewed." And I do like to hit the smaller authors. Mark Normand is the next great. I'm not familiar with Mark Normand. I'm assuming he's a comedian. I really would like there to be more comedians out there who actually try to make people laugh and don't just try to make people clap. Oh, I used to love comedy. I remember back when Pandora started, I found out you could just listen to comedians. So I had a whole comedy channel set up and it would just give you different bits by different comedians. This was back, I think, when Pandora was actually trying to figure out people's musical tastes and it wasn't just another Spotify, though I haven't used them in years. Right now, I'm using YouTube Music when I want to listen to music because I have YouTube Premium. Because, yes, I actually pay to have ad free YouTube because I'm a weirdo. Actually, it makes it a lot easier to listen to things like if I want to listen to the live stream, like the Loin stream, or if I listen to other authors or listen to reviews, it lets me do so without commercials. And I absolutely hate commercials. I like parody. I actually had all of Weird Al's records for a while. I've made a few parodies myself, though I haven't actually made them into well, I've made funny little videos, but I haven't made any parody videos. Uh, Farcity. I can't say I've actually dabbled too much in Farcity. Or if I have, I'm not aware of it. I'm one of these people who just grabs things and go with them. I don't really look for the definitions. I'll have to look him up. Let me write that down real quick. Well, type it out since I'm on the computer. Mark Normand. Once I get some free time, which will probably be December, I'll have to start looking. Music, everybody lurks. Everybody peaks sometimes. I don't know. My musical tastes are different. I had a girlfriend in well, I don't even want I'm not even going to tell that story cuz she might listen to this one day. Let's just say that she's one of the reasons that I listen to opera now. You know, you can't listen to something as a joke for so long before you start developing a taste for it. Though it has been a moment since I actually listened to any opera. And you know, I was just doing it to annoy her and then I developed a taste for it because all guys have to annoy their girlfriend with something. Well, I appreciate you not putting me on a bad one, John. I really like my comedians. Ever since my favorite one died, my favorite comedian of all time was John Panette. I loved John Panette, one of the funniest guys out there, and he died. But you know, fat comedians, they die. That's what they do. Was my ex girlfriend? Was your ex girlfriend is 9 foot tall? Oh, 9 foot tall. No, she was short and stacked. I think she was about 5'6". But she had some broad shoulders. She was fun to wrestle with, and that's where I will leave that particular explanation off. John Panette certainly worth your time. He was the one, if you remember, several years ago, where people were quoting the Chinese buffet joke. You know, the "you go now." That was John Panette. He was I love his bit about being in France and wanting pasta. What writing app you use? It's this wonderful thing called 5 Star. It's a notebook. It's a graph notebook. I write all my books first on graph paper because it helps me with my spacing, and then I usually transfer them over to either Word or Scrivener. I've got both programs, but it really depends on the editor I'm using at the time. And weirdly enough, even though Scrivener is supposed to be something you could just hand off to a formatter, I have the formatter I've used and the other formatters I've talked to, none of them use Scrivener. And maybe I'm just not using the right ones, but the one I use does a pretty good job. So, and I know I could format it myself, but honestly, it's worth the $70 just to have somebody else format my books. But I don't know how many people, because I know we've got some. I think some of you guys are published as well. How many of you guys format your own books? Because I know you can do that with Scrivener, though I have trouble because I have the Windows version because I build my own computers, so everything I have is Windows version. You format your own sugar time? Do you have an easy time of it? Because it gave me I know they give me one heck of a time. It really is just easier for me to pay somebody else to do it. Though I might take another crack at it one day when I get some more time. I really should learn Linux. I've been learning Java, and I've learned a lot of programming languages, so I think I should probably take the time to learn Linux because I want to set up my own server. What's up, Timo? We're just having a discussion after the review. It's a pretty good book. It's well worth the 3 hours it takes to read. See, after seeing a lot of light novels and their formatting, I figure I can do as well as that. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's too hard to do formatting. It's just one of those things that I don't really have the time for, and it's just worth the money for me to send it to format. I didn't know you could format these on Google Doc. Yeah, Breach of Peace was pretty for a YouTuber book. It was pretty good. I have to say, I'm glad to have found like a bigger YouTuber who actually took the time to write a decent book. Because as much as I like Shad and as much as I like Razor Fist, I think they should stick to doing YouTube. Um, but that being said, Razor Fist's second book was a little bit better. I think he's starting to get into the swing of it. If somebody could just rein in his vocabulary, uh, forgot how to format. Uh, yeah, I think that Razor Fist is actually published through a publisher, and when you reach a certain size, they don't even bother to send you to like a. Well, they won't get you. What's the term I'm looking for here? It's the big edit, the big expensive edit. You know, the one that like big popular people should be using. Developmental editor, yeah, they really should have a developmental editor first. But it's writing seems to be one of those things that people will naturally gravitate towards a. Yeah, I think the chat's a lot slower on my side than you guys are responding, but I do appreciate the help. I am very forgetful. But I think that Razor Shad definitely needed a developmental editor. Shadow of the Conqueror. Oh my gosh, that book was could have been cut down by probably 60%. So I'm not from first thoughts. So I've got about 7 books that I have plotted out in my head already that I want to put out. Battle Games, the first book, is not a good indicator of how long it takes me to write a book because I started writing that before I got my engineering degree. And then I picked it back up after I finished my engineering degree. And I can always tell which one started before and which one was after, like reading the chapters, because I know where I put it down, but I think it has a different feel. But the first book, if I take out the time I spent going to school, probably took me about 7 months to write the first draft, and then about another 3 months to get all the editing done. Battle Game, Hapless Homesteader, that was meant as a weekly special, so that one actually took me right at 25 weeks to write because I wrote one chapter every week, and then it took me about a month to edit. And if I could ever get off my butt and finish it up, I've got about half of the audiobook done. But I'm finishing the second book for that after I finish the second book for Battle Games. So that'll have its sequel coming out hopefully next year. But actually, if I could have afforded it, I certainly would have got a developmental editor. At the time, I just didn't have, $3,000 to go to give somebody. And I figured if I just put it online, somebody's going to critique it eventually. Yeah, I narrated my first Battle Games is narrated by me. Hapless Homesteader will be done by me. Yes, finding the right editor is definitely difficult. My first editor, I think she did a decent job, but really all I was having her do was more of a copy edit. I'm trying a new editor for my second book on Battle Games, and I just finalized everything with him, so I'll be passing that off to him in September. But finding the right editor, and I really wish I was better at editing. It's pointed out to me several times, even when I'm on Twitter, and I'd like to thank everybody who participated in the in the Twitter is bad games art debate. I'd like to thank you all for being there because I found out I had a typo in my channel banner, which I didn't know about, and that'll teach me for trying to do anything with my phone. But I have to do a lot of stuff at work because I'm not always at home. Hey, but I'm at home now. It's fun. I get to sit here and drink some tea and chat with you guys. Uh, well, I say tea, it's green tea. I try to stick to somewhat keto, but I'm not doing the best job at it. Oh, I can't imagine getting a developmental editor for free. That would be amazing. But right now, I'm just going with trial and error. I figure if I dump it out there, the internet's cruel enough that somebody will tell me what I got wrong. Tea is a really good beverage for the end of the day. It's got a little bit of caffeine, but it doesn't have too much, so you can still sleep. But then I had to stop drinking all the sugar. I do miss sugar sometimes, but you know what? You can live without it. I really wish I was good enough with spelling to just be an editor because that would be a lot of fun. But I think right now I'm going to work on these videos. If I get pretty good at doing my own narration, I might offer to narrate some other people's audiobooks. I'd like to see more audiobooks out there. I'd like to see more indies have some more audiobooks. So I might see if I can't develop a method for making them a little bit faster and seeing if I can't possibly make a discounted service. Though I'm a little bit hesitant to do anything like that because people like as a discounted service, it would be more reading it like story time rather than trying to act everything out because that would certainly cut down on my recording and editing time. But you know, it's one of those things you want to make sure you're getting good. So, and audiobook, I like audiobooks. They're useful for someone like me who's always on the go. And it's nice to have somebody read to you, especially with books like Razor Fist books where he's throwing a whole thesaurus at you. It's nice to have him read it because he writes like he talks. So it goes really easily for him. Let's see. Fun as an editor varies. 2 books ago, I got sucked into a book while editing. Last book, I was screaming at the book because it was chapter 12 and nothing had happened. I think that all of us are a little bit guilty of that at times with some of the things that we write. It gets a little difficult to know everything you should cut and things that people actually need to know. Cue chariots of fire when being chased. uh, I got chased around today. I didn't actually get chased. I got tossed around today, or at least they tried. I'm a pretty big guy. It's hard to toss me about, but they certainly gave it their best. My wrists and shoulders and everything hurt. I went on I think it was about an 8-mile walk just to get because I'll walk and I'll listen to books and I'll go get something to eat. But I was hurting. Writing can be like everybody's writing can be. It's one of the great things about beta readers. They point out some things that will basically save your bacon, for lack of a better term. Like it makes sense to you when you're reading at the time when you're reading your own writing because you know what you were thinking, but getting somebody else to read it really, really helps. And in fact, one of the things that helped me, and I have to say, was getting Battle Games on Loinstream because it let me know a lot of things that I needed some work on. It was probably one of the toughest things I've ever had to sit through was the live reading of my own work. So, was your Lama? I think yours was in this last one, wasn't it? The tater mash one that she did. Dogger. I did enjoy that. I don't always get a chance to sit and listen to the Lamai. What are my favorite genres? Oh Lord, that's tough because what I like to read and what I like to write are completely different. I like I would probably personally not pick up a sports book, and I never intended to write a sports book, but I like Battle Games is just like, hey, like this is the story that I want to tell. I also am not a big fan of dystopian books. Or not dystopian books, like post-apocalyptic books. But then I wrote Hapless Homesteader, so I keep wanting to do Lemoy, but my anxiety makes me feel guilty for not doing things that I should be doing. Yeah, I can understand that, but on the other hand, sometimes it's just a matter of, hey, I'm going to try this. I'm going to go out and I'm just going to do this because I think it'd be fun. You only get the one chance to do things, and so you might as well do them. It's better to regret. It's better to be a little bit embarrassed, but to get some honest feedback and have a little bit of fun with it. And honestly, the Lemoy stuff, it seems to be good for people. People seem to enjoy it. It seems to be a fairly safe place to do a lot of that stuff. Sorry, I got the dogger here still begging for attention. She's a little fiend. You should have submitted it, Vanya. I was surprised that I didn't even know that was a prompt until people asked me for some lore. I don't always catch everything because I'm usually pretty busy. If I'm not at work, I'm doing family stuff and I'm trying to keep some kind of social life. Like, I have a friend who wanted me to go play Magic with him tomorrow. I unfortunately had to pass because I'm doing some family stuff. But I'll probably go play Magic next week because he's a teacher. He's going to have to go back to work pretty soon. The dog that's bothering me now, that would be Birdie. She's a chocolate lab. She's my brother's dog. He lives with me. It's not. It's actually. This is the same brother I had to basically raise, but I mean, he's a good kid. He turned out really well. I can't tell you what he does, but he does make more money than me. He just likes having somebody around. But he's out dating now, so he'll probably get married soon. Well, I say soon. I mean, like in the next few years. And I'll be happy for him. It's nice to see that he's having a pretty normal life, all things considered. Oh, I'm sure that well, we all think our stuff can be a big mess at times. Sometimes it's just a matter of getting something down on paper and then reworking it and reworking it and reworking it. Because until you publish it, you can do whatever you want with it. You can refine it as much as you want. It's kind of like going over something with a file. You just keep going and keep going until it's in the shape you want. What do I classify a string? Oh, what do you classify a strong woman? You mean do you mean like a strong female character or like boss girl or uh, as far as strong woman, uh, I guess any woman that can actually like have some pushback, like physically push you back. Like where I live, there are two types of women. There are female characters. Okay, uh, I would say a very willful character, one who, well, for lack of a better term, who's kind of guyish, one who acts a bit more male. Now, that being said, there's a lot of female characters that act male that I wouldn't consider strong. Just, they're kind of bossy and mean. Ironically, I write a bossy and mean female character, but I do it because I think she's funny. Strong female character. I would guess it would be the same thing that would make most women strong, and that would be standing by their particular beliefs or standing by their family. Someone capable of getting things done in that case, making things happen. There's a whole thing I'd like to explore in writing where so females have particular power in just their general wiles and their ability to manipulate others. Not meaning to be mean about anything or be crass about anything, but there's a certain soft power in women that isn't present in men, and I'd like to see that explored more in books. And I don't just mean seduction and bedroom stuff. Women have a soft power that men just simply don't have, and I think that can be used to a much greater effect in stories than I've seen lately. You see it in a lot of older books, though you see a lot of weird stuff in older books, and it's just weird to us because it's not something we're entirely familiar with. But I don't know. It's one of those things. Maybe you see, you see, a strong character when you see it. Like the intimidations moms have. Yes, mothers have a great intimidation. You can call it manipulation. I mean, honestly, manipulation is not always a bad thing. Well, you don't want to be manipulated, obviously, but manipulation in itself is a power. Like, who's more powerful, the guy who can, kill anybody, or the person who can make that person kill anybody? They can observe things, they can look harmless. It's, yes, redirection. Power doesn't always just, unlike what Mal said, power doesn't always come from the end of a gun. Sometimes it's the person who controls the person. Well, I guess that's basically what he meant. I do like to see stories where a man and a woman are actually a good couple. They're actually having a good relationship. I get so tired of seeing these stories where one of them is super competent and strong and the other one is super weak and always has to be made up for by the other one. It's nice to see one where the two actually depend on each other, even where one might be in an elevated position, but somehow the two complete each other. It's nice to see. It's nice to have that little touch of compassion, that little touch of realism, because people do tend to complement each other. The best couples I've seen and known in real life complement each other. Uh, they tend to fix the other's deficiencies. They look out for each other. It's one of the more intimate relationships you can have, and by intimate I mean close, and not the things that people look up on the internet in their alone time. But it's nice to see that kind of understanding between a couple. You don't get that very often. I also like to see more stories where there's already an established couple and it's not the story of starting a relationship, because I feel that's been done to death. But I don't know. It's like at some points I've thought about reviewing like the Savior's Champion or the Savior's Sister, just because I know it's a really bad female character in that. From what I understand, every review I've seen of that has mentioned that she's pretty I can't remember her name. The main character, the main female character in those books, that she's a pretty toxic female character, that she's pretty much a psychopath murderer. And that can be fun, but I think too many people are afraid to make their character the bad guy. Layla, yeah, that was it. Layla. See, I think that maybe they would have had more fun with the story if they just kind of played into the fact that Layla was this kind of psychopathic murderer. Yeah, actually played to that angle. But I think a lot of people are afraid to make their characters the bad guy, or to have fun with making a character the bad guy. Couple I don't see done often: political marriage where they have a cordial relationship and work together despite not bonding due to romance. That would be a fun angle to see, where they actually work together, like they actually have some kind of bond with each other and it's not about the romance. Rainer, you don't have to worry about spelling with me. If I ever get to a point where I think I have enough fame, but it can tolerate it, I'll release my first drafts of some of my books, just the actual scans of the pages. You could see some of the crap that I've wrote down. Oh, there are some really shrewd women. I'd like to think that my character Ruth from Hapless Homesteaders kind of shrewd. I thought it would be fun to throw a woman in her. I think I made her in her 70s into a book who is she's almost like a motherly figure, but she's got some snark and shrewdness to her. She knows how to work people. Layla would make a really good horror story antagonist. Like she's she's virtually unstoppable. It would have been fun if Toby, I think was his name, had to actually like come to terms with what she was and put a stop to her. But I think that story was really more wish fulfillment than anything else. You've seen the political marriage once. I think that would be a good basis for a story. I would still like to see that. There's a lot of stories I'd like to see written, but I don't have the time to sit and write them all. Yeah, the ability to be stupidly powerful and spawn anywhere would definitely make her a threat. It's kind of like where they have the Rey with the new Star Wars. I've told people the best way to save that series is to make the next movie where she's the villain and she's some kind of aberration in the Force, and have an actual weak character have to go up against her and have to be smart and cunning and figure out a way to stop this woman who's basically sucking up all the power in the galaxy or all the force power in the galaxy. Like there's nothing she can't do. I did like Star Wars. It's not my favorite sci-fi genre, but I really did like the Old Republic. The Old Republic is definitely my favorite of the Star Wars franchises. The modern stuff or the stuff set in the I guess the present timeline or whatever they'd want to call it, not really what interested me. I didn't much care for it when it was just the three movies and the three prequels. It, Star Wars always kind of bored me a little bit, and maybe it was just because of when I was born, everything was Star Wars. Sci-fi genres. Am I going to do a Lemoy? I might one day. It's less about the desire to do it and more about having the time to do it. Uh, my last job was I was running a distribution center. Well, I was running an outbound portion of a distribution center. My job was basically administrative and a little bit of supervision, but not really. Mostly I ran everybody on a computer, but it was a high stress job that took up about 13 hours a day. And then on my weekends, I just couldn't bring myself to do much of anything. It was getting pretty bad because the job was fairly high stress. I had one boss that basically wouldn't leave me alone and was just backseat driving the whole job. My new job is actually a lot, let's call it lower stress. There's more requirements to it, a lot more physical requirements to it. My thoughts on AI stated that it makes you dumber. Relying on any tool will certainly make you weaker in the capacity for what the tool replaced. Like if you use, like say you could write a story and then you could have AI go through and edit everything down to make it, remove your redundancies, make sure that you're being clear, make sure your sentences made sense. And then all you had to do was go through and fix up the story. That would certainly make you a weaker storyteller. As far as just generating stuff with AI, so my whole thing with AI is that it's a natural progression for companies to want to gravitate towards because it allows them to cut out, artists and other kinds of workers. But the problem is you can't cut out too many workers before you collapse the economy. You can't sell stuff to people who don't have the money to buy stuff. And if you eliminate everybody's jobs, nobody has the ability to buy stuff. And people need their jobs not just for money, but for some kind of fulfillment in life. So I think that AI will be a self-correcting problem. Something will happen to where like it's gonna definitely suck for a while. But I think that I think in the long term, it's going to be checked. It's when they first started doing automation in a lot of these factories, one of the problems they ran into was that they would fire all the people who they had initially doing the jobs, and then they thought the machines could just do them, and they found out the machines would screw up or have problems or just wouldn't do things right. So they had to bring all these guys back to work the machine they thought was going to replace them. Well, now all these people are mad, so they had to they had to start paying them more. Yeah, sorry, my logic can be a bit out there sometimes. Artificial intelligence is probably going to lead to a lot of stupid people trying to get into things that they probably shouldn't. I don't even want to say stupid, just people who are not inclined in the proper direction. Like where I have an engineering degree, I know a lot of people who are in engineering who definitely shouldn't be. By the way, hi, Herman. Nice to see you. Yes, my logic is a little bit confusing sometimes. China is on the frontier of this test. They'll show everybody what hell looks like. The thing about, I think that AI is going to just be used eventually for, if you're as old as me and you remember places like Kmart where they had those knockoff brand videos. Like, when Aladdin came out, they made some knockoff Aladdin, which was basically the same story, but went by a different name with worse animation. I think that's what AI's future is going to be like. I think there's still going to be blockbusters. I think there's still going to be actors. There's still going to be writers and books, but the AI is going to handle the churn. As I put in a post some time back, writing a book is easy. Selling it, on the other hand, is hard, and AI ain't going to do it for you. That's very true. A good times version. I think AI will probably shine most in video games, things like Skyrim and whatnot, where you still have to have somebody write stories for it and actually give it parameters to follow. But I think AI could be really used for things like companions, people who respond to you, who help fulfill, like, say you want to play a caster, but you need a tank. Well, you could get an NPC to be your tank. You could actually have some people working around with you with the AI. I think that'll be a great use for it. Oh Lord, Rainer, you got another novella in mind. I'm still reeling from that last one. I loved the D&D style group you put together, where you've got the sorcerer who rides around on a sword, and then an old guy with a cleaver and a sketchbook. It really felt like a D&D party. Like, I've sat in game stores where there have been parties like this. Like, yeah, my guy's 70 years old and wanders around with a rusty cleaver drawing stuff. It's just, it was wild. It really did remind me of late 90s, early 2000s sci-fi. Yeah, Skyrim felt really, really shallow. I really wish it was deeper. Like, I really loved Morrowind, because you really had to struggle in that. But with the old Elder Scrolls games, if I didn't min max just perfectly, I would always reach a point where I just couldn't get through it. Barry, why are you dabbling with AI? Actually, I think AI might be good for giving people some prompts, or if you were to feed it your own stories to help it, like, to help you see what's going on with your own writing. It could be a very powerful tool. An AI NPC in game that randomly goes psycho and turns into an opponent for no reason. I mean, that could be cool if you want to give them like a code of ethics, or you could have them where they're like randomly generated, so they might actually be a psycho and you never quite know. Oh yeah, Skyrim's still a good game. I just think it's a lot shallower than it should have been. And for that matter, so is Fallout 4. But I really liked Fallout 4, but I really liked the base building. I wish they'd spent more time on it. And I wish when you were raided by bandits, they would actually attack from the outside and not just appear in the middle. I think ChatGPT scrapped the entire blogs on the internet. Maybe. I think people are still going to have their preferred favorites. Like, I think it's definitely going to take down stuff like BuzzFeed and whatnot. Like, those guys are probably out of a job, but they just churned out crap anyway. So I don't think we really lost anything of value. And honestly, just in my personal opinion, I think we need to bring back more trades and manufacturing in this country and let people get used to being blue collar. Granted, we'll have to bring blue collar back to where, a normal person could live on it, but there's nothing wrong with being blue collar. There's a lot of good things about it. But these are my thoughts. I think more people need to work with their hands just to have that lived experience. I think that would also improve a lot of people's books, because I think I've read a number of people's books that I don't think have ever actually done a hard job in their life. Rainer, are you trying to tell me you got married? I think you've told me you're married. That whole arrow to the knee thing. If AI can take you out, you weren't very good at your job. Uh, yes and no. I could see myself agreeing with that. Well, Vanya, the thing about selling your books is you're developing a following. It's more about from what I understand, it's more about developing that following of fans and meeting their needs and introducing them to something new. So, it might take a while. In fact, it might never happen. But again, this is a hobby. This is something to do with your time. This is something to do outside yourself, outside of the general eating and hanging out with people. It's something to do to better yourself. And if that's all you get out of it, that's a really good thing. I mean, none of us may ever be profitable, but there's nothing wrong with that. You're doing something a lot of people wouldn't do, and you're following through on something that a lot of people can't. So just doing that is a good thing. Novella is disappointing. Novella AI is disappointing. Yeah, I imagine right now it's probably really disappointing. I bet it could get a lot better in the future. But I guess it depends on who they scrape from. After dealing with PhDs, I prefer to deal with blue collar types any day of the week. I can completely agree with you there. After dealing, so I went into, I started my engineering degree when I turned 30, and dealing with some of these guys who were going in fresh. Yeah, they really needed to spend some time working in the factories. Really need to get a good idea of it. I know. I knew it was his grandson's Rainer. I just thought it was a cool prop. It's a funnier idea that the old man is walking around with a sketchbook and a rusty cleaver than he's carrying around a memento from his dead child or dead grandchild. That was actually kind of sad. And I like to keep things light. Oh, blue collar work is definitely something to respect. And again, I think more people should do it if for nothing else than the lived experience. Still have the ProWrite Aid, the free version. I'm not familiar with that. I'm assuming it's another AI tool. Permanent hyper egotistical disorder. I think it's just that a lot of people haven't suffered. Like they think they've suffered, but I don't think they actually have. And it's through suffering that we build character and life experience. And there's some books I've read that I've never actually put a review out on because I didn't finish them. And I think a lot of these people probably haven't. I don't want to say you need to suffer to be a good writer, but I certainly want to think it would help. You know, you need to have some experience, some way to relate to people who have something that feels realistic. And I feel like a lot of them haven't. We have limited plumbers here. Yeah, actually, plumbers are doing great right now, especially in my area. I know several that are making like 120 to 140 a year, and the cost of living in this area is not high. I actually used to put robotic systems in factories. I love that stuff. I love the smell of manufacturing, if you can believe that. No, I believe that. That's one of the things I'm going back to class for. I took a job. It's full time, but it's temporary for me, so I can get instrumentation. Or I can finish an instrumentation degree and add that to my engineering degree. Because that'll help me do some automation, which is what I wanted to do in the first place. I didn't know when I started an engineering degree that all they really do is work on CAD and solve equations. I thought they actually built stuff. The premium version of ProWrite Aid Gas Plagiarism Checker. Oh, I had to look into that. Yes, Herman, what kind of factories did you automate? I've worked in let's see, what factories have I worked in? I helped set up a factory that put up. So I have about 10 years of industrial experience, and once I got my degree, helped me. That got me a job setting up a factory that built trucks, like semi trucks, and that was kind of fun. That job did not last, but that was fun. What percentage of people in engineering do you run into that have a degree on something but have no idea what they're doing? Uh, yeah, I don't think there's any engineers at my current job that can get mad at me. I'd say about 90%. I think the problem is a lot of these engineers have not had to work on the floors of factories. And so they have no realistic expectations of what people can and can't do. Oh, writing the diagnostic stuff. Oof. See, all I did was system stuff. All I did was help set up the actual labor side of things. So I was kind of a mix between engineering and supervision. So part of my job was to figure out the processes we were going to use and what needed to go where and why. That was fun. Oof, I can't. Oof. Technical writing is technical writing is a skill all in itself, but it certainly is. You definitely want to keep that and novel writing separate because some of those manual. Well, I don't know. You can write a good technical manual. There have been some I've read that have been actually interesting. They remind me of those old commercials from the 30s that I think it was Chrysler put out. Do you think it's easier to market a novel when you're older or younger? I don't know. My marketing's not the best, I have to say. Actually, I should probably take more time to it. I've just been, tired and busy. And your guys are actually part of what I'm marketing. I felt it would be a good idea to build up a YouTube channel to help other authors and also help myself. Yeah, it's it's part of reviewing other people's books. I get to have people criticize my own stuff. Hmm. Let's see, Vanya. I would like to guess you're younger based on the popularity of YA and etc. I think Vanya is younger. I'm not entirely sure. I've talked. I think we've voice chatted a time or two, but then I'm not a good judge of character. How old people are. Flowery technical books. Uh, so the book I've read recently, the First You Write a Sentence, actually, that's I really want to do the workshops on that. I'm trying to figure out if I want to release it all as one or as multiple pieces. But it talks about technical books that you can open up and just read because they work really well. They're just well written. The descriptions flow really well. Yeah, I think younger. I agree with you, Herman. Younger probably will attract traditional publishers easier. But I think with older, you probably have a bit more experience, a bit more to draw upon for what you write. But it's just because you're older doesn't mean you've gone through more. There's a lot of young people who've gone through some stuff. So, Vanya, can you still not? You can't drink now? Oh, I feel for you. I on my walk today, I had a Bloody Mary. Or when I got to the restaurant I walked to, I had a Bloody Mary. It was not a good one. I keep a running tab in my head of the restaurants near me that have good Bloody Marys because those are my favorite cocktails. Which I believe is a good. It's a good thing to have a list of. Granted, I have the Mexican restaurants around me. I think will also make Bloody Marys, but there's absolutely no point in getting a Bloody Mary at a Mexican restaurant. That is margaritas and margaritas only. And I also do keep a list of that. Oh, Vanya, you are baby. That's okay. You're not missing out on too much. Drinking is one of those things I think is fun in moderation, but is life destroying if you do it too much. So that's one of those things, make sure that you teach the kids in your family what responsible drinking looks like. Otherwise, their crazy friends are going to teach them, and those guys don't stop until they're blackout drunk. And that's just my personal experience. Your experience may vary. Get a Bloody Mary in a Chinese restaurant. They'll put real blood and real Mary in there. Nah, I think I'll stick with the tomato juice and the black pepper. Actually, there's a place near me that makes a spicy Bloody Mary, and that's actually it's not very spicy. They use ghost pepper vodka, and it's not really that spicy, but it's good. Oh, Barry, you got to read Lime's Fable. That's you'll get a good hint of of Rainer's sense of humor. That again, I say that book is wild. It was certainly fun. uh, but it's still fresh in my mind because that was a wild afternoon. Rainer is a funny dude. I had more than a few face down, snowy bushes drinks moments in my life. Yeah, I can't say I've been drunk a few times, and I think I had one really good time where I woke up to a broken computer and broken windows because we decided to I think we did a liter of Jameson and a half liter of Jack Daniels, and I think we finished that off in less than an hour. And woof, lost about a week's worth of groceries, a whole computer, and two windows, and that was not a good time. Also had a really big bill when we went to IHOP the next day for coffee and things to wash the taste of alcohol and vomit out of our mouths. Learned that lesson about hangovers real well. It was two people. Between two of us, we drank almost 2 liters of alcohol in less than an hour. We were some sorry people. My friend who was drinking with me, he tripped on something and fell down the stairs twice, I think. And I ended up waking up half naked in a bathtub full of vomit and body powder. So that was phew. What are my favorite tools aside from notebooks? Um, that's a very good question. Uh, I use a D&D mat for when I have to choreograph fight scenes. So I'll make paper cutouts of the characters, or if I have to choreograph something very complicated and remember where people are, I will keep the D&D mat out. And I've got one of the big ones that has the hexagons on one sides and the squares on the others. Hey, Usagi, welcome to the chat. I mean, we've been chatting. The book review itself took about 20 minutes. We've just been chatting, having a good time. We're just talking. We're talking about books and tools and drinking and just generally being silly. Thinking of getting the free write writing tool. I'll have to look into that. I don't use a lot of technical tools. I probably should use a bit more. I have that constant fear that I'm going to, since I read a lot of books. I reviewed Breach of Peace. I've been holding on to that for a while, and since I got thrown around in hand-to-hand certification today, I thought it would be fun to read what's basically a detective story. Word is definitely a good program to use. I don't like using it for really long stuff because it has a tendency to get real janky. You can just do the one-time fee for Word, or at least I did. You can also use OpenOffice. I think OpenOffice allows you to export in Word format, though you have to make sure that the type of Word you're sending to like an editor can actually read it. Because I don't think all Word is compatible. Oh, I was so mad. I lost. I've bought Word twice. I bought it once in college when I got the student edition, and then I lost that, so I had to buy a new edition. But I had to upgrade to Windows 10, and I was very unhappy about that. I loved my Windows 7, and I had to get Windows 10, and I'm still mad about that. I really, really, really. Well, Windows 10 isn't too far from Windows 7. I've gotten used to it, but I hate Windows 10. LibreOffice needs more editing abilities. I am not familiar with LibreOffice. I am familiar with Scrivener, and I am familiar with Word. And Scrivener is fun, but I haven't got a lot of time to play with it. I bought the copy, and then I used it for my first book and then stopped. No, not Windows 11. I will use Windows 10 until I am forced to upgrade. And I'm only going to be forced to upgrade if I can't buy a copy of Windows 10 and I go to build my new computer, which I intend to do in the next year. I could probably use Google Docs. Windows 10 keeps wanting to be. I'm assuming that means upgraded. Windows 10 isn't terrible, but since Microsoft has been spending a lot of time talking about editing documents on people's computers, yeah, I'm like, no, I'm paying for editing. I don't want you guys going through and editing stuff that I'm not paying for. You know, these are part of a business I'm running. I don't want you guys touching that. But you know how these tech guys are all about can and not about should. If everything I need is working, I don't want to change that. Yeah, I don't blame you. And actually, in some of the books I've been reading, some of the technical writing books, they talk about a lot of how older writers will continue to follow through on things that they've been doing and pay extra money to get programs that are similar to the way they did things. And I can understand that. Once you find a groove, you really don't want to move from it. And everybody starts developing their method for doing things. Ooh, an AI co-pilot program. I wouldn't doubt that somebody might develop an AI developmental editor, which could be like a good like open source project. Like people allow their own works to be scanned for some kind of open source project like that. But I think there's going to need to be a trust issue with that. I have a program from 2005 I still use. I have games from 1998 I still play. So, and That's actually a popular one. It's the Diablo games. I actually played the original some too. But those are always fun. I spent way too many hours on Diablo 2. Like way too many hours. People are already using it to code. Yeah, people are kind of scraping stuff they shouldn't. I'm not sure where AI is going to go because I still think you can't copyright anything made by AI. I had to install by putting in the CD in the computer that actually had a CD-ROM drive and network with my computer to read it. See, you can just get the DVD drives, and I think Blu-ray drives can still read CDs. So you should be able to you would be fine getting one of those, and you could just say you're upgrading. Diablo 2 was a good game. Hey, display name, welcome. We're just chatting about writing and everything really. CDs will last you about 10 or 20 years if you take good care of them. I wish I had gotten into Warcraft. I'd only had the money at the time to buy a few games, and unfortunately, Warcraft didn't make the cut because I had Command and Conquer, and that's what me and my friends played. Tiberian Sun, we wore the crap out of that game. We crashed more games of Tiberian Sun than we ever finished. It was fun though. We had a lot of fun. I remember we'd throw these massive armies at each other, and we were just like, well, this battle's not going to conclude for at least another 2 hours. Let's go get something to eat. So we would leave and go eat and come back, and the game had crashed. Manuscript writing app. I have never heard of that. I'm assuming it's open source writing because I think all of Linux is open source. I really do need to learn Linux because I want to set up my own server and move my website over there. Though, speaking of that, at some point I do need to jump back on and update my website. So it's just nice to have one. I know who you are, display name. I get some people mixed up, but I know you when I see you. Hey, I got a heart. All right, guys. Well, unfortunately, I am going to have to jump off of here because I have to be up at 4 in the morning and I need to sleep. After getting beat up and walking about 10 miles, I am wore out. So I thank you all for joining me. I'll try to do some more live streams. I'll probably try to aim them for the weekends when more people can be here. So thank you guys all for being here, and I wish you all good luck. Let me get to I need to get a third monitor here. I've only got the 2 anymore. You all have a good evening.